everyone. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox. Thank you for joining me on this journey of self-examination and identity architecture. Notice that we have pivoted from the journey of self-discovery to the journey of self-authorship. Why? Because what I've learned is that there are certain things in our lives that we discover, and then there are other things that we deliberately create. And this show, I am here to bring awareness. I am here to awaken you to your own power to think independently, your own power to question things and examine everything, examine every inherited belief so that you can become the architect of your life, because no one was born to live someone else's script. And if you are not building, designing, constructing your own life, your own identity, then you are following the script of someone else. And, with that comes a lot of side effects like anxiety and depression and people pleasing and second guessing yourself and doubting yourself and all of that. So you don't want that. You want to walk in your authentic self so that, you can live a fruitful life. You don't want to just survive. You want your life to thrive and be fruitful. So I am here to awaken you to your own power to think independently. We don't think about that. There's so many things in lives that we follow by osmosis, by just default, because this is the way it was taught, this is what we know, this is the way our family have done it for years, and so we just do the same thing. We don't question sometimes, does this serve me today? Does it resonate with me? Does it make sense in my life? So now what we're doing is examining everything. Not only are we examining everything, but we are questioning everything. And once you come to the realization that so many things that we yield to, that we succumb to, that we follow, behaviors, patterns, habits, and all of that are things that doesn't even make sense to us, but we do it. Why? Because it's a habit, it's a custom, it's an inherited pattern of belief, and in most cases it's limiting belief. So this is fascinating, at least it is to me, because what it's done is brought awareness to myself. Make me aware that I have the power to change, that I have the power to scrutinize and investigate. I have the ability to reason. I have the ability to analyze. I have the ability to process every information and use what applies to my life. The same with you. But we don't think about it that way. And, when you are living by someone else's script, what happens is that there's so many side effects. Because why? Because it's not yours. Anxiety, depression, second guessing yourself, people pleasing, fearing rejection, afraid to say no because, you want to fit in, you want to belong, and so forth. So it's important, when I talk about identity architecture, everyone really should pay attention to that. And it all depends on the life you want to live. Some people are okay just surviving, but if you're like me, and those of you that follow my show, we believe in a life of thriving, flourishing, not just living, not just existing. There are different types of people. There are those that would just go through life, just comme ci, comme ça, que sera, sera, and they just adapt to their environment, to the people around them, to their ambiance, they just adapt, not even giving any thought to themselves. Then there are people like me that I want avant-garde, I want original, I want what is mine. Why? Because I know that I have the ability and the capacity to create the life that I want. Now, you have to first determine what kind of life do you want to live. If you want to if you life doesn't mean anything to you, just existing, then this probably won't help you. But for those of you that want to thrive and flourish and become your authentic self, then this show will help you. Now, today I want to talk about self abandonment, which is self betrayal. It's not that you leave yourself, it's just that you have created such a distance between who you are and who you uh, and the way you want to live. When we think of self abandonment and we think of betrayal, and what that is, when we think of betrayal, we think of betrayal like, by a friend, by your parents, by a spouse, by a company, by your church. Betrayal can happen in different facets of life and relationships and so forth. Um, but the betrayal that we very seldom talk about is the betrayal of self. And we don't think a lot about that simply because, um, we simply don't think about abandoning that's a thing, that when you abandon yourself, that's a thing. But it is a thing because when you abandon yourself, guess what? When you abandon yourself, then there's no one else that you can trust because you have abandoned the very person that you need to protect. Every time you uh, every time you yield, every time you live something outside of your truth, you are chipping away of your own dignity. Every time you say yes, and this is we do this every day without realizing. We're like, okay, that's fine, let's just do it right there. Because if you're not convinced about something, then you have abandoned yourself. Why? So that you can be accepted, or so that you can fit in, or so that you are not rejected. When you say things like, uh, that's fine, let's just go ahead and do that. Or when you say, well, I'm not sure, but if that's what you want, then go ahead and do it. Again, you're abandoning yourself. It is self abandonment. And what happened is that you are ignoring your own worth. You're chipping away at your uh, dignity, the value of you, your truth. And the whole idea in this growth process, in this growth of examining everything, is so that you can come to a place where you are honest with yourself. Sue shared this week, and it was so. When I heard it, I was kind of saddened by it because she said that on June 9th, her husband passed away on their 25th anniversary. And Sarah, she said that, of course, she's still grieving. This is just a month ago. And she said that, of course, she misses him so much. She says, I don't know what to do. And then she said, I don't know who I am. But Sarah was so sincere about that. Sarah said that she lived her whole life, her whole identity was uh, based on who her husband was. Her husband was a very successful businessman, and she had a very easy life in terms of not a lot of stress in terms of their socioeconomic position and so forth. So life for her was easy. She didn't have to think about um, having to think independently. Who am I? This, had this been before he, passed away, this meant nothing to her. She didn't have to do that. It was not important for Sarah to think about who she is. And now that that person has been removed from her life, she said, I don't know who I am. And that's not just Sarah. There are so many people that have shared about the relationship they have with their children. They find their identity with their children. I know people that all they talk about is the grandchildren. If you were to take away the grandchildren, or as the grandchildren grow up and they want to be independent and live on their own and not really pay a lot of attention to the grandma or grandpa, not because they don't love them, but just because as kids grow and they become independent, they have a life of their own, and things have changed. Things have changed in this generation with the Gen Z, the Gen Y, and even the millennial. People, you grow, you get busy, you have kids, you have a family, and you are tied up with your own life. So you don't really pay a lot of attention to your grandma and grandpa. Again, not that you don't love them, but you are busy with life. You're busy doing life with the family that you have created. And even if you don't have a family of your own, you are growing into your adulthood. So we really should not uh, create an identity. I know people that all they talk about is the grandkids, the grandkids, the grandkids, and nothing about them. And that's why some of you have shared, people have shared, and this is both genders, male and female, that they don't feel seen, they don't feel heard, they don't feel chosen, they don't feel understood. Why? Because when you invest all of that effort and energy into things that are outside of you, then you're not going to be seen for who you are. Why? Because you don't even know who you are. If you don't know who you are, people are not going, they'll look at you, and the first thing is, like, some people, when I talk to them or think about them, all I think of is their kids or their grandkids. That's it. Or they may have sometimes, they have, fur babies, what they call them, or anything else other than themselves. And that's because, again, another inherited belief that we have is that we should not pay attention to ourselves. We should not think highly of ourselves. We should not talk so much about ourselves. So what happens is that we shrink, we minimize who we are, and we elevate the things around us, external things, people, and we make them our identity. We don't take the time to build, to know, to construct, to create. We don't even know what we want. Someone said to me the other day, she says, I hear all of this that you share, but I can tell you right now, my identity is in my husband. And she was clear about that. She says, my identity is my husband. And I respect that. I definitely respect that. But then if you think about Sarah, she followed the same path. And now that he is gone, Sarah said, I don't know who I am. When you abandon yourself, as I said, you chip away part of your dignity. You chip away. And the reason we abandon ourselves is because in most cases, we fear rejection. We don't want people to say, well, you are, what is it, non-compromising, unapproachable, whatever. We fear that. So we go along to get along. We go along to get along. We ignore ourselves. We silence ourselves. We say things like, it's no big deal. That's okay. It's no big deal. When it is a big deal, because if it doesn't speak to you, then it is a big deal. And it doesn't mean that you're non-compromising. It just means that you have to approach life with your own truth. Certain things you can compromise and you can be okay with that. But if you have to deny yourself just to please someone else so that you can be validated, so that you can be accepted, then what you're doing is chipping away your worth. You're chipping away your worth. You are abandoning yourself. You are betraying the essence of who you are. And when you do that, you can't, your growth is stunted. Why? Because you've taken a step back. Instead of saying no when you mean no. And sometimes it's not easy. It's difficult because people expect, the world have expectations of us, society, uh, the culture, the environment that we are in. And what happens is that we develop, if we don't know who we are, then we develop a life that is performative. We start performing for external approval. We start performing. We don't do things because we are authentic. We do and respond to life because we are, we want to fit in. We want to fit in. We want to be part of the collective. And sometimes it's painful to stand out. And what we're doing is really we're living someone else's life. We are forgetting ourselves. And I know that we are encouraged to do that. Don't think so much about yourself. Don't be self-absorbed or self-obsessed. Don't be obsessed. Don't be so obsessed with yourself. And it's not being it's neither self-absorbed or self-obsessed. It is simply recognizing, acknowledging, and admitting to the person that you are, stepping into that place of self-authorship, creating an identity that's yours, getting away from the script that someone else wrote, examining everything, questioning everything, unboxing everything, unpacking everything, unwrapping everything. My husband tells me, sometimes we're talking and he would say something and I would immediately follow up with a question. And he would say, that's all I know. I don't have any details. That is all I know. And I like that about myself. He's got that clear that when he is sharing information with me, it's not something that I'm just going to take for granted. I'm going to have questions. Now, I don't get dogmatic about it, but when you share something and somebody said, well, I don't really know that. I don't really know. I don't really know the details. That's okay. If it's important enough for me to know the details, then I go investigate. Why? Because it's important to me. How does it affect my life? How is it going to affect me? Like, there's so many changes with things that are coming down with political things, and you should walk with your passport because this, because that. And if he tells me something, oh, you know what, I heard this and that and whatever, and I says, oh, really? I wonder if a copy of the passport is good enough, or, I have it registered in my phone, or do I need, my original passport, whatever, and then he would say, well, I don't really know the details. Then I would go check it out. Why? Because I want to know how it affects me. And that's just a minute example. But there are other things. There are just a whole lot of things in life. Uh, you know, uh, Rules, laws, and social constructs, and belief system, and uh, just traditional norms, the way we do things, the way we think, the way we process things, the way we don't even analyze anything. We just take it for granted and we just do it. We just follow the collective, not knowing that you can make a deliberate decision to become the architect of your life, the architect of your identity. You are creating. You can create. And I'm telling you, the more you walk in that direction, what will happen is that this whole thing of self-abandonment and self-betrayal, that'll be out the window. Why? Because every time something comes up, you will be so mindful. Does this suit me? Is it going to work for me? How does this affect me? What should I do? How do I fit in this whole collective mindset, way of thinking? And once you start thinking independently, that's the whole thing, my friend. You think independently. Some people, they set themselves up. I know this person, uh, she has some issues with family issues and things of that nature, and the expectations that surrounds her with all of her family members and so forth. And where did that come from? Inherited beliefs. Can she change it? Of course she can. She can distribute the wealth. She can distribute the responsibilities. But because she's the person that's always there to get things done, to get things resolved, to answer all questions and all that, by default, all the responsibility has fallen on her. And it doesn't have to be that way. And she doesn't want it to be that way uh, because she's talked about it and she's exhausted. And do you know that as we continue this whole thing about self abandonment and self betrayal, after a while it starts affecting your health. Look, severe, what do you call it? Insomnia. Some people, it affects their thought process. They get brain fog. Some people have chronic fatigue. It creates, self abandonment is not a medical diagnosis, but it has symptoms because of the stress that it creates. It Some people have symptoms with their digestive tract. Why? Because they don't have peace. Everything is like, it's the demand and their mind, and to resolve, to do, to think, to and all of that. When you step back, pause, and start thinking about yourself, all the areas of your life that you have yielded, that you have submitted to someone else's script, and then you realize, wait a minute, none of it is mine. When I started this journey, and when and I started chipping away a lot of things, I discovered some things about myself that Yeah, that I didn't like. When I say things that I didn't like, I mean I discovered things about myself that I was aghast. I was like, wait a minute, why did you do this? And as I was talking to my coach, I said, I shared that, in corporate America, I was in the on the leadership team, and I had to make decisions like that, and I had to think on my feet. I had to do this, do that. It was a high, stressful environment. I liked it because, I learned to function in a high stress environment. But then some of those leadership qualities I brought into my personal life, and I just kept it going. And when I left corporate America, I needed to kind of simmer down. As a matter of fact, even while I was in corporate America, I could have pivot. When I'm at work, I'm a certain way. When I in my personal life, then I'm a certain way. But no, that that high stress volume became my personality, and consequently part of my identity. And I had to get rid of that. I'm like, wait a minute, I am not everybody's problem solver. No, I can pause and I can think about me. And I guess that's what kind of prompted this whole thing about self-discovery. And now, of course, everything is self-examination and identity architecture. Why? Because I am building, I am creating, I am designing, I am constructing to become the person that I want to be and to build the life that I desire. To me, I find it fascinating. Why? It's working for me. Because one of the things that, when I think about it, one of the things that I don't want in my life is to uh, grow or to become aware that something that I'm doing, it's because of the script of someone else. When we think of like that's why, when I talk about partnering with someone, whether it's in marriage or just a relationship where you partner together and you share the same space, there's so many expectations that so many things that are expected from a woman. She must do this. It's like gender assignment, and I reject that fervently. I totally reject that. That's why, my husband and I, when we got married, we did not go through the for better for worse, the marital vows, for better for worse, for richer for poor, in sickness and in health. We didn't go through that because I don't, that just doesn't apply to us. First of all, marriage is a social construct. We know that it's not a religious construct. It is a social construct. And if you have any questions about that, check with Jacob. Jacob with Rachel and Leah. He wanted Rachel, and then the father said, "Well, you have to marry Leah." And I think he married Leah and worked 7 years for Rachel. And well, he didn't marry; he just got together with them. There was no ceremony. Abraham and Sarah, and then he got Hagar. There's a bunch of mess. But the point is, and we're not talking about that, but the point is, we didn't do this vows, religious vows, and until this day, we don't believe in gender assignments. Why? Because I have certain strengths. My husband has certain strengths, and what is important for us is to maximize on the strength of each other. He is great at finances. He is great at keeping things on track, on time, on schedule, uh, everything having to do with that. He arrived that way. He's done it in his personal life, and by osmosis, it just fell that way or just happened that way once we partnered, once we got married. I am good at, like if you were to say, who's the calmest, who stays calm, he would say it's me, because I pause and I calm and I think. And now that I'm so mindful of this whole um, journey of self examination, yeah, I am pausing more to see how it affects me, how it affects our relationship. But I am focusing a lot on me, because this journey is an individual journey. This is not like let's go walking together. This is not like something you can do with a friend. No, this is a journey. This is your journey. You uh, becoming aware of your power to think independently and to deliberately become the architect of your life, the architect of your identity. That's not something you can say, what do you think about this? You don't want to ask any questions of anyone or what. No, no, no. People, when you change, when you decide what works for you, as I always say, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to tell you what to think, and I'm not here to tell you what to believe. You will discover that. Why? Because of your own power to think independently. Isn't that amazing? I mean, you need to pat yourself on the back and feel good about yourself to know that you, and that's something that no one can take away from you. You have the ability to think independently. But see, we aren't taught that way. We are taught to not trust ourselves, not trust your intuition. uh the mind is deceitful. We're taught, those are all construct that's been handed down, inherited belief. The mind is deceitful. Why? Question that. The mind is deceitful. Is your mind deceitful? And if it is, you need to know why. Why is your mind deceitful, my friend? Why is your mind, and where did that come from? Who made that up? Those are the things that you will be examining. Those are the things that you will be questioning, so that you can determine, wait a minute, my thoughts are valid. My thoughts are honorable. My thoughts do matter. Who who has determined that your thoughts, your mind is deceitful? Who said that you should not trust yourself? And why? Why should you not? These are questions. Again, we are examining. This is the journey of self examination and identity architecture. Why should you not trust yourself? What is wrong with you that you should not trust yourself? Why is it? Who said that? Who came up with that? Why should you not? Another construct is to lean not onto your own understanding. Listen to me, my friend. You're going to be leaning on someone's understanding. Why should it not be your understanding? You need to know why. What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with your understanding? What is wrong with your knowledge? Your recognizing truth. What is wrong with you? And see, that's what happens when you follow inherited beliefs. It leads you to question your own authenticity and your capacity to think independently. Why? Because you start diminishing yourself and negating the things that comes to mind. You put yourself on the back burner on purpose, deliberately. You just like, oh no, I can't think of things that way. Why? Again, you were not born to live someone else's script. But if you don't know what your script is, then yeah, you will be living someone else's script. You will be living according to what someone else has conjured up. And if you don't know why, if you don't know why, what, then again, you go through life by default, following the collective. A lot of you, you have shared that you're going through this journey of deconstructing from religious indoctrination. And I did go through that too. I've shared many times that I left religion or religious doctrine many years ago, about 17 years ago. And, I've gone through a lot of questioning as well. And one of the things that I find fascinating, which again, it's too late to try to convince me otherwise, when I like certain passages, and of course I don't, again, my thinking is totally different. But when I remember things that I used to share, to believe, to follow, and observe, and all that, I was like, Cynthia, gosh, dang, I just followed along. I didn't really pause to think. And one story that comes to mind, two stories that comes to mind that I just chuckle when I think of it. And again, this is for me. There's a story in the Bible that talks about Jonah. Jonah was sent to Nineveh, according to the story. And of course, I see these now as simple stories. They're stories that you tell. And Jonah was sent to Nineveh to to talk to the population there so that they can turn around from their ways of being and so forth. And he didn't want to go, so he kind of took a detour. The point is, he was swallowed up, according to this story. He was swallowed up by a whale, and he remained in the whale's stomach for 3 days. I don't know, 3 days, 3 nights, 3 days in the whale's stomach. That story stayed with me, and I chuckle now because of course, there are certain people that still believe that, but there was a time that I believed that. Or let's put it this way, I never even thought of questioning it. I just took for granted that it's a story, it's true, and that's it. And as I started my own journey of self-discovery, of religious deconstruction, I started reviewing the Bible again and again. I've read the Bible many times in my religious walk. But I start thinking about it, and I start, again, using reason, analyzing, processing information. And I'm thinking, okay, you are swallowed up by a whale, and you remain in the whale's stomach for 3 days. Now, if you analyze something, if you analyze this whole story, now you know that, if you are first of all, when you go into somebody's mouth, they're consuming you. The first digestive process is chewing. Now, let's say, for instance, you swallow, like sometimes, we swallow a candy, and so we haven't had a chance to chew it, but digestion still happens. It'll still come out. It doesn't just stay there. If it stays there, then something is not right. And then I start thinking about Jonah. Just think, Jonah is in the belly of the whale for 3 days until he spewed him out. Now, that is a great story, but my mind tells me it's not a true story. It's a great story, but it's not a true story. Because I've processed, I've analyzed, and I know. And if it happened then it should be able to happen again today. But that's not even the point. The point is the whale swallowed Jonah. And he stayed, okay, in the stomach, there is like gastric juices and acidity and a whole bunch of stuff that would kill a human in the belly of a whale. Come on, my friend. Anyway, for me, that became a thing. I was like, okay, I'm gonna, check that off. No bueno, doesn't work for me. And as I continue to question and ask and question and seek and examine and search and investigate and all that, I start looking at different areas. And I went for Noah. Noah's Ark. Imagine that. I did that. These are things I never even thought about. So I'm thinking of the ark. I'm not sure where he got the tools to build the ark, the nails, the drill. I don't know where he got those. But anyway, the ark was created, and 2 of every species was allowed to enter. And I think Noah and his family, they were probably about 8 humans. And if I recall the story correctly, it rained for like 40 days. It rained, and there was un diluvio, water rising and so forth. But remember, 2 of every species of animal. Now we're talking polar bears, we're talking penguins, we're talking walrus. Is that the name? I think walrus. We're talking donkeys and horses and even flies. What's the lifespan of a fly? The lifespan of a fly is like what, a week or so? There's some insects that only have like a very short lifespan. I know they have these little bitty bugs that June bugs, I think their lifespan is like overnight. All of that. And then you have this ark that is filled up with 2 of every species. I'm not sure about the food consumption. How did they manage to eat? And then if you're talking cheetahs and lions and tiger and all of those carnivores, animal that eat others to survive and all that, it's like, were they tamed, or did they, obviously they didn't eat, those that were on board. So what happened? How were they fed? This is not light. These are things that I submitted myself to, questions and examinations and investigations. I started, and I'm saying, okay, is this something that's supernatural? And if it happened then why now? And I went through a whole thing to revamp, to change the way of thinking. And that's why now I am free. Why? Because I've learned the truth. And I don't have to be afraid of anything. Why? Because I have examined, I've done my investigation, and I have come up with, I've analyzed, I've processed the information, and I have come up with the truth that serves me. It may not serve you because, uh, you may choose to believe it, and that is okay. Again, I'm not here to tell you what to do, what to think, or what to believe. I'm just here to bring awareness, to awaken you to the power that is within you to think independently and to process information and measure it against and try to figure out what are the inherited beliefs that I am following that no longer serves me today, that's not working for my life. This whole religious deconstruction stuff, I went through that and I start, and I'm thinking, but the Bible says so. But the Bible said, and I kept going back and forth. And then I was like, okay, well, the Bible says so. Well, who wrote it? And then one thing led to another. Who wrote it? How was it originated? And all of that. And that's why, again, now I am free to share and I am free to live without guilt, without shame, without judgment, without any kind of conviction that that I am offending anyone, or that I'm going to hell, or or that there's a devil. I don't. None of that is part of my life. None of it. None of it. No devil, no Satan, no Lucifer. None of that. I don't. That's not part of my lexicon. That's not part of my way of thinking. And I'm okay with that. Why? Because it's worked for me. I have done the work of examining. I had to go in my mind. Okay, does that make sense? 40 days and 40 nights. Here's this ark that's floating in the water. Who is feeding? Are they all fasting for 40 days? The animals? They don't have sentido de razonamiento, sense of reasoning. All they know is that when they're hungry, they go hunting for a gazelle, for someone that they can capture and make a meal out of them. I used to love to watch this National Geographic, and it's, to me, it was just so fascinating because and it's interesting because these when they would capture an animal, like if a cheetah or a lion or whatever, they eat, and sometimes they eat like once a week or once a month or something. It's not, they don't have to, they don't eat like humans. So it's like, where is all the, if it's two of everything, then there should be two whales and two sharks and two of the different types of fish. And those live in water. If you take them out of water, they will die. They will die, my friend. So I am trying to figure out, did Noah had a pond within the ark where he would house these mamíferos, these water animals, fish, and all the sea population. So you see, I did the work. I examined, and I thought, wait a minute, how does that work out? How did that work out? How does that make sense to you, Cynthia? How does it make sense to me? And after thorough investigation, and I wanted to add another twist to it, that no, it's this way, and it doesn't mean this, and it's a metaphor, and no, it's not metaphor. It was there as a live true story in the Bible. Now, of course, I don't believe any of that, but that's me. And that has worked for me. all the things that I have debunked from the things that I have learned works for me. Why? Because I have analyzed, I have processed, I have investigated, I have submitted to reason, and I know the truth, and that's the truth that has set me free. I submitted to reason. This is not a matter of good or bad, right or wrong. This is what I did. And again, this show is here to awaken you to your own power to think deliberately. And when you think, remember this, if you don't lean onto your understanding, and again, with this, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to speak the truth to yourself, because remember, the objective is becoming your authentic self or living your authentic self. So you have to be truthful to yourself. And because I discovered all of that, of course, I checked out every story, every story that I found questionable. And now, of course, little stories that come up, it's no big deal, because I just for me to process it, it's simpler, it's easier. I don't, it's easier. Why? Because I'm using my ability to think independently. And when I think independently, what comes out of my mind, what comes out of this processing center, my mind, my reason, my analytical steps toward discovering truth, all of that, I lean onto my own understanding. Because if it's not my understanding, then it will be someone else's understanding. And again, no one was born to live by someone else's script. Someone else wrote the script, but I am living according to that script. That's no bueno. Because it's like, okay, what about me? What about me? Do I not have a brain to think independently? Give yourself credit, my friend. Empower yourself. And that's not just this. This is in every area of your life. When you are sometimes, people just talk a lot of stuff and you question it, question everything and submit to them whatever question or things that you might, if it has to do with you, don't waste your time with little trivia thing, stuff that doesn't concern you. You don't have to bother with that. But things that concerns you and your thoughts, your way of being, and things that affect your life and your growth and your evolution, you evolving into your authentic self, then you need to question everything. Don't give anyone a slack, like, oh, no, it's okay if you say so. No, not if you say so. Why? Again, if it doesn't make any sense, if it doesn't affect your life, don't waste your time. Don't spend time mulling over something that doesn't affect you. But if it will affect you, if it will affect, the way you think, or something that is directly affecting your life, then then question it, evaluate it, and submit it to reason. And then you're going to go and affirm. You're going to go and affirm your way of thinking and know that it's valid, equally valid to someone else's script. What I shared with you, when you go and you do your own investigation, you may not see it that way. You may say, well, well, I believe this way and I believe that way, and that's okay. But when you become honest with yourself, you may have a different take. But the way I broke things down, the way I, break it down, the things, with the story of Jonah and then the story of Noah's Ark, when I kind of process the information, the truth of what I had read, then I know that it doesn't make sense to me. I will not have a brain to think if I had to put it on the shelf. You don't have a brain to think, analyze, process, and question and examine things to then just put it on the shelf. Does that make sense to you, my friend? If it makes sense to you, then again, empower yourself to your own independent thinking so that you can continue your process to become the architect of your identity and the architect of the life that you desire to live. It's all up to you, my friend. It is all up to you. I think it is so fascinating because it's like having a personal computer and know that you can run things on your own. You can run it. You can make it happen. You lead it. You guide it. You program it. You set up the database and you can extract information whenever you can. But then you have to trust your ability to not only what you create, but you trust your ability to process. The processor. When information is being processed, you have to trust the outcome, because if you don't trust the outcome, again, you're going to default back to someone else's script. You will default back to following someone else's script. In the meantime, you have your own computer system, your own database, and your own ability to extrapolate information that will change your life. Amigos, I'm going to leave you with that so that you can sup on that. Every Thursday we meet here, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you can't meet me here on Thursday, then look at these over here, these icons. It's on, the show is on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. 24/7. You can access the show 24/7. Anytime. If you wish to drop me a note, and again, I want to thank those of you that are in touch with me. And again, what you share, if I can share from that, then I will, because your experience helps us all. If you wish to drop me a note, see the information here. Info at thecynthialinoxshow.com. Drop me a note and I will respond to you. Or if you want me to share something, just say it and I will do some research and make sure that I bring it to you and everyone else. In the meantime, I am going to say ta-ta for now. Have a fantastic weekend. Of course, we still have Friday for those of you that are in the workforce. We still have Friday to enjoy, and then of course we have the weekend. So whatever you do, have fun and just be mindful. The power is yours for independent thinking. Ciao, amigos. I will see you same place.